Alrighty, how's it going, guys? Hank here, back at you with episode number 7, or as I like to call it, the Mickey Mantle episode of Hidden for the Cycle. Wanted to give a little shout out to one of my all-time favorite Yankee legends, but in any event, today I am joined by... Wait a second. That's Nick Morgasen? Wait, what are you doing here?
Oh, wait, I'm usually behind. I'm usually producing the show.
Yeah, no, well, now you're hosting this, and incidentally, you were actually the last guest I had on the show before we moved on to this network. But, Nick, how's it going?
Hank, I'm excited. Little baseball, little classic historical talk to get into. I'm looking forward to it. And we got a massive scandal on our hands. It's a good day to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So John Check obviously is not with us this week, and he is no longer with the show. I don't want to get into the full detail about that, but I just want to say I wish him well in whatever he is doing. But anyways, let me continue on with the plugs. And folks, please don't forget to follow us on all of our social medias. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at HFTC And, of course, please don't forget to follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find a lot of good shows on there. You can find the 3&D. You can find Fruity Cereal. And, hey, here's a show that the guy to my left hosts. It's called Empty the Bench. You may have heard of it. It's only the namesake where this show is, but no big deal. And, last but not least, please don't forget to follow our YouTube channel. You can find us at youtube.com/ETB Network. And while you're at it, why don't you do us a huge solid? Hit that big red button down below. Ring that bell just so that you don't miss any notifications for the show. And obviously follow the website too, etbpodcast.com, for great blogs and more information as well. And Nick, let's get right to it, because I have a feeling that this first topic that we are probably going to be spending the most time on is going to be very, very much blog worthy. Now, granted, we don't exactly have all the details for what has been going on with this scandal, but with that having been said, it's pretty serious. So, Tampa Bay Rays prospect Wander Franco has allegedly been involved in a sexual relationship with a 14-year-old girl. And, yeah, it's funny. I actually, when this story broke, I was on the road with Jennifer. We were, like, on a little day trip. And when we stopped to get food and I saw my phone blow up, I was like, whoa! Like, Wander Franco doing that? This is a guy who essentially was going to be the face of the franchise for the Tampa Bay Rays. At only 23 years old, he was having a really good year for them. And they also signed him to a mega deal, too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it was a 12 or 13-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. They bought him out of like 3 or 4 arbitration years just to kind of bypass those years. But to get more into that story as well, so the Wander Franco story breaks. I was talking to Kyle, actually, Hank, when...
Oh, my gosh.
And he sends me... And by the way, Kyle Hirschon, who's going to be producing a project, maybe we'll talk about that at the end of the episode. But he sends me Instagram posts, which are not in English, by the way. And it's a picture of Wander Franco and some allegations of what Hank said, and an alleged... You're going to hear the both of us use the word allegedly a lot because we don't need lawsuits on our hand on this network. So, of a underage relationship, he's 18. Well, at the time was 18, and she was 14. But the relationship technically started when he was 17 and she was 13. And supposedly, this is what blows my mind even more. The parents okayed it.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, so allegedly the parents approved the relationship. But now, let's remember, This is in the DR, in the Dominican Republic. Now, I'm not insulting the Dominican Republic. Let me be very clear.
Mm-hmm.
But there are different, I don't know what you want to call them, norms in different countries, different traditions, different norms. And in the Dominican Republic, sometimes they date too young. That's just something that goes on over there.
Right. But the fact of the matter is, excuse me, if this is all true, 13 years old, he's practically dating a child, no?
Not practically. He would be dating a child if that was the case.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean.
So this got pretty serious. If you saw across the network, I posted quite a few videos when the news broke. And what was interesting when the news came out, no one was on it at all. If this account that put it out and a few others, no outlets were covering the story. So it almost went, unfortunately, under the radar when the story broke. So
wait. Hold up. I'm sorry. Time out. Did you just tell me that this story pretty much went under the radar?
Trust me, I don't want it that way, but that's kind of what happened. So,
and we're talking about a guy who had potential to being a future face of Major League Baseball. A guy who's 23 years old and, involved in a major scandal. They're trying to sweep it under the rug. Nick, I'm sorry, but do you see exactly where I'm going with this in trying to, put two and two together and connect the dots? If it's a star involved in a scandal, and we know one sport that could ill afford some negative publicity, Nick, exactly who do you think that I am going to be blaming right now for this whole mess having been covered up?
Well, I don't see the banner, so I'm going to have to make a makeshift one while you're talking about it. I know who you're talking about. Let me see if I can...
Oh, could there be anybody else that I am talking about?
You mean that?
The one, the only, Rob Manfred.
Well, here's the problem, though. So when this news finally spread around, and once it hit all the outlets, it spread like wildfire. Everyone picked it up. Jeff Passan picked it up from ESPN. The AP picked it up. The AP has done a good job covering this story, by the way. But once it spread, it was over because it got everywhere. Every news outlet had it. And then the news came out from Jeff Passan, who is ESPN's major MLB insider, said that he agreed, Franco, the Rays, and Major League Baseball, just to take a step back so people understand the story, agreed to go on the restricted list. So the restricted list is basically you did something bad, but we want to keep you on the team, so we're putting you on the list.
So let me just once again put two and two together here for this story. Essentially what happened was there was a scandal breaking out. They tried to cover it up, but now that the story is all over the place, and you know what the old saying is, you can't exactly unring the bell. Now it's like, oh, we got caught with our pants down, so he's got to voluntarily be placed on the restricted list.
Well, no, he wasn't voluntarily.
Or not voluntarily, but he's being put on the restricted list.
He agreed to be on the list, essentially, because he had no choice.
Well,
here's the other weird part. And you and I, even though there's really not much, there's really no laugh to this story. But did you see the giveaway the day that he was put on the restricted list?
Wasn't it a Wander Franco
snapback hat?
Snapback cap.
And they didn't cancel it.
I'm sorry. What?
Now, here's the problem. Now, we've seen this many before with allegations of players. Giveaways are attached to sponsors. So usually they're planned, what would you say, like 2 months, 3 months in advance, or even before the season. A lot of times they plan these things. You got to have some awareness. You got to pull that. Seriously.
Nick,
What?
There's a little sound effect that I'm hearing in the background.
Oh, well, I wasn't. Usually we don't play sound effects on this show. I gotta find it. You mean that one?
There we go.
I mean, but I don't know. So this all goes down, and if I can go back to Franco, and this, like I said, spreads like wildfire. It's now being investigated, and Passan is all over it. He's not going to San Francisco. They called up, I think, one of their prize shortstop prospects, if I'm not mistaken, and put him on the roster. They actually played good baseball. They must have been motivated because they weren't playing good baseball as of late.
Well, they took 2 out of 3 from the Giants, and they helped out the Dodgers, who we'll be talking about pretty shortly.
And by the way, the Giants are not a bad team. So
no, they're not. I mean, they've fallen back down to earth a bit after what was a really surprising start, but I think the problem really isn't so much the Giants. I think it's the fact that the Dodgers kind of pulled away and went on that streak, and not to mention, as good as the Giants have been and as great of a job as Gabe Kapler's done, they really don't have the talent to match the LA Dodgers. That's just the reality of the situation.
And like you said, we'll get to the Dodgers in a few minutes. But so the way this goes, I had a problem with, and Tom and I talked about this on ETB this week, that Kevin Cash, by the way, the manager is in the worst spot after a game when an allegation happens. And all of a sudden they have a room full of media. And he comes out and he says it was a normal scheduled day off for Wander Franco. You really expect me to believe that?
What?
Now, I get it. The manager is in a bad spot. Because what else is he supposed to say? Is he going to come out and say, oh, well, Wander Franco committed a sexual assault or a rape allegation and he's not in the lineup? He's not going to say that.
No, of course not. But he's in an unenviable position for sure because, he's trying to, not, talk about anything, big that happened with his star shortstop. But now that this whole mess has pretty much gotten out of hand, it's not a good situation. And Nick, that coming off the news that they just learned about their star pitcher, who we'll touch on a little bit more at some point, it's got to be a rough time if you're a Tampa Bay Rays fan, especially now that, you didn't expect the Orioles to be such a threat. And now that they've, beefed up their bullpen and they added another good starting pitcher in Jack Flaherty, and you have that insane lineup too, it's going to be a really, really rough go of it for the Tampa Bay Rays too, for sure.
And by the way, if you look at the AL East, which has probably been one of the more competitive divisions this year, that's why the Yankees are in last place, and we don't really talk about them right now. But my point is that Tampa Bay was playing good baseball for the first half. Baltimore was playing good baseball. They both had scandals go on during the season.
Well, Nick, I hate to say this, but Baltimore's scandal is practically...
Oh, no. I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying they both had that.
They did, but Baltimore is pretty much small potatoes compared to what Tampa Bay is dealing with.
Absolutely. I'm not saying that the Wander Franco scandal could be compared to Kevin Brown, but I'm just saying they both got unnecessary attention, is my point. And
yes.
Look at their situations now. And I want to read, I was telling Hank before we sat down to do the show here, a tweet from Hector Gomez. I'm sure you've heard of Hector Gomez before.
Sure.
He's a foreign correspondent. He's the top MLB insider.
Sure.
So a tweet came out yesterday from the day we're recording this and said, a person very close to the investigations into the case of Wander Franco, quote, it will be very unlikely that Wander Franco will play in MLB again. And it also says, judging by the results of the investigations that are currently being carried out, which directly commit him to the accusations against him. Uh-oh.
I mean, let me go back to what I just said before. If this was a scandal that the MLB was that a lot of people were trying to keep under wraps, and you have the correspondent revealing that. Nick, you know what I have to say? Why am I not surprised? And, again, we don't know every single detail of what happened, but based on whatever flimsy evidence we might have, he's in serious trouble.
I mean, we're talking about possible jail time if this is proven to be accurate.
Yeah.
We're talking about inappropriate sexual contact with a minor.
Not just inappropriate sexual contact, but Nick, statutory rape.
Well, I couldn't think of the word, but yes, statutory rape.
Statutory rape. Like, doesn't matter if she consented. Like, she's fucking 14 years old.
Oh, well, first of all, it's not appropriate, regardless, is my point. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you consent or don't consent. 14 is 14 years old. I don't care who you are. I don't care if like I said before, if the parents allegedly approved the relationship, they should go to jail too.
Seriously. If I thought it was cringy in Animal House, I don't know if you know what movie I'm referencing or if you know which particular scene that I'm talking about, then I highly doubt that, well, actually, no, technically it's sort of like he didn't really get in trouble if you know the movie that I'm talking about, but if I thought that scene was cringeworthy, there is no way in hell, based on what we're hearing, because again, it's all allegations, innocent until proven guilty. I'm a firm believer in that.
Right, but the Hector Gomez
tweet, it's not looking good for him.
The Hector Gomez tweet is damning, though.
Trouble.
The Hector Gomez tweet, though, is damning.
Big trouble. And by the way, this might seem like, secondary right now, but for the Rays, I hope for their sake that contract gets voided.
Ah, you beat me to the punch this time. Even though I said it on ETB, and of course, the last time Tom got on me for Fernando Tatis's contract situation with the PEDs, this is a whole like fourth, fifth, sixth dimensional level.
Worse.
Okay, so if this contract is not voided, well, here's one: Major League Baseball needs to step in and say, "See ya. There's no place for you in this game if this allegation is true." If statutory rape, alleged statutory rape, is on the table and he did it, bye. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. There's no room for you in this game.
Don't let the bars hit you on the way out because he's probably going to jail.
Yeah, and you were starting to say before, Rob Manfred, where are you? Where are you? Are you hiding somewhere? Like, are you going to make a comment? A commissioner of baseball? The clown in chief?
He's probably gonna like release some words that will be just that about this whole situation.
Oh, a dopey PR statement, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and Tom and I were talking about like all the commissioners. Like, even though we clown Roger Goodell in the NFL for the way he handles stuff, at least he comes out and makes a comment when something happens.
Right, and at least Roger Goodell is actually somewhat good at what he does, and he finds ways to make the NFL, that green stuff.
I mean, we clown Adam Silver in the NBA, but at least he makes a statement when something happens.
Well, Adam Silver's still spineless, but I agree.
We haven't heard from Rob at all. Nothing. Not even a dopey PR statement we haven't heard. Nothing from the commissioner's office.
Again, in fairness, and Nick, I hate to be playing devil's advocate on Rob Manfred, but again, we still don't really know the full details about what happened. So I think that might be one reason why Manfred hasn't really spoken up and said anything about it. I mean, look, remember when I first saw the news and saw what you mentioned, I was going to do a short video on this, but I ended up going against it because at the end, there wasn't a lot of big outlets that were reporting it. So, I couldn't like do it, even though it would have been nice to like, boost the views on the channel. But sorry, this is a show that we try to get our viewers like in on for integrity and whatnot. So I couldn't. But having said that, the fact that like Manfred like hasn't said anything along the lines of, oh, such and such has apparently been alleged to have committed a serious crime. We are working hard and doing our best to like do our investigation stuff. Yeah, that's where you look at Rob Manfred and you realize, oh wait, this is Rob Manfred, and you look at the back of him and you see you don't even see a spine on his back. So
I'll give you one more. I'm going to steal a saying from you.
Go for
it. Look on the back of Rob Manfred's baseball card. What do you see?
Oh wait, nothing.
Well, a lockout.
Yeah, the lockout.
The COVID stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good things. That's the point I'm getting at. When you turn over his baseball card, it's all incidents.
Well, again, to be fair, like, has everything he's done been bad? Not necessarily. I mean, the pitch clock was a good thing, but when you consider how badly he's bungled situations, it makes you kind of forget that there actually have been good things that he's done in this game. Am I wrong?
You're right, but at the same time, it's hard to take him seriously at times when you have situations like this.
Especially when he says nothing about a potential sex scandal, and then he grins like an idiot on TV. Oh, we're going to have a lockout, but it's okay. I hope to get this thing resolved. Shut up.
Well, here's the other problem. In any sport, usually when an incident like this comes out, it usually happened quite a few months before. So how long were they holding on to this info? Was it a year? Was it 7-8 months? Was it more than a year? Has it been swept under the rug like a dust bunny? We don't know. That's a big problem here. His contract's got to be voided. He's going to get suspended one way or the other because there is evidence of him on social media doing alleged inappropriate things. So, but of course, Rob Manfred probably won't grow a spine, as you say, and suspend him for enough to really make it hurt. Look what happened with the Marcell Ozuna situation. You know what I mean?
Or I would say he also might not have as big things in between his legs, if you know what I mean.
Well, he hasn't had that since he's become the commissioner of the sport. But
my point.
And by the way, the owners gave in and gave him another 5 years. So we have to deal with a clown show for another 5 years as the commissioner of the sport? By the way, this is not going to be the last scandal. There's going to be more, I bet. And he's going to handle it like every other scandal he's handled so far. By doing what? Nothing! Trust me, this story's not over. This is a story we're going to be following on this show, on ETV, across the network. So, you know how we say like sometimes we're going to follow a story and then we forget? This one you're not going to forget.
There may or may not be a blog from the resident editor-in-chief of the blogs. I wonder who that guy could be. No.
Okay, you ready to move on from the scandal?
Yes, please. Let's talk about the other the other thing that happened to the Rays, which seems like a walk in the park compared to what we just talked about. And it's a shame that we're talking about Tommy John surgery as a walk in the park, but given the state of the Rays, that's the reality of things. And Nick, I got to say, this is a big blow to the Tampa Bay Rays because Shane McClanahan was essentially the ace of what looked to be a really deep pitching rotation. And now with this injury, it brings up even more question marks. And Nick, let me go and look at his numbers for you, if I may. He went 11-2 this year with a 3.29 ERA. He had, let's see where it is. Sorry, I'm on Baseball Reference right now.
I have his numbers: 11-2, 3.29, 121 Ks, and a 1.18 WHIP.
Yeah, no, he was very much in the conversation to winning the Cy Young, and honestly, it was pretty much a 2-horse race between him and Garrett Cole. Now that he's gone, and now that you don't have your possible crown jewel of your prospects that you thought would be the face of your franchise, it's got to be tough if you're a Rays fan. And not to mention, this is also a team that's got a little bit of a ballpark situation, but that's
another. Hey, that's the easiest of all the situations that they have. But Shane McClanahan,
that's fucking sad.
I know that their ballpark is the worst thing, and that's been a problem for forever. But Shane McClanahan, the ace of the staff, been a good pitcher. He's going to be out all through next year, so he's going to miss the 2024 season. You're not going to see him until 2025. That's a massive blow because you know how hard it is to get an ace of a pitching staff. I mean,
they don't grow on. Let's put it this way: aces don't exactly grow on trees.
Exactly. Like when you look at Garrett Cole, obviously they didn't grow that homegrown. They paid $300 million for it, but
you could have traded a few magic beans for him and maybe won a World Series sooner with him. But I digress.
Right, but this is a massive blow. The Rays are in trouble. They are in, and I think that's being nice, by the way. But they're in trouble. The fire alarms are going off in the firehouse of the Rays. And they need Band-Aids. What's that dumb saying you and I used to say all the time? Like they held it together with glue sticks and tape, essentially.
Duct tape and glue sticks. But why do I have a feeling that Band-Aid that they're probably going to get is going to turn out... Well, actually, let's be real. Any guy you're replacing Shane McClanahan with is going to be a Band-Aid. Let's just hope it's not of the Hello Kitty Band-Aid variety.
I don't know, but like I said, the Rays are in trouble. Like we said, just like the thing with Franco, now their ace is out. They're not winning the division. This is the Orioles' division to win right now. So as long as they don't get injuries themselves and they're healthy and they keep continuing to play well, they have one of the best records in baseball. It's going to be an Orioles and Braves situation going forward, pretty much.
Well, we'll see. Let's not forget about the two teams from the Lone Star State.
I just meant like they're the two best records in baseball. Obviously, you have the Rangers and the Astros. To be honest, and this might be a hot take too, I don't trust the Rangers. That's just me.
I'm with you there. I like their lineup, but the Astros have a track record of success that you just can't You're
also sitting on an ace that you're paying that's not pitching very much at all. For the Rangers.
Yeah, you mean the one that you mean the one that had to go to the glue factory after a series of several injuries? The one that was on the Mets?
He's turning into Mark Pryor.
No, I wouldn't go the Mark Pryor route. Maybe Mark Pryor didn't really have a long career. I think that's kind of an apples to oranges comparison.
Well, my point is that Mark Pryor, like everyone hyped up Mark Pryor, like they hyped up Jacob deGrom. Oh, he's the big ace, he's the big guy, and like every time he'd pitch, he'd get hurt. And that Jacob deGrom is becoming that guy. Oh, he's a big ace pitcher. He's gonna take a team to the World Series. Then he gets hurt.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling more like Doc Gooden, but without the drugs. Because Doc Gooden had some injuries in his career, if you remember.
I do, a little bit. I mean, like I said, Tampa is pretty much knocked themselves out between the Franco injury, Franco's allegations, and the McClanahan Tommy John surgery. So I think the Rays are done. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but like the Rays are done.
I mean, look, if they make the playoffs and, they still have one of the better records, like, credit will have to be given where credit is due to Kevin Cash, but it's going to be an uphill battle, so to speak. And if you want to move on, let's talk about a team that's made some more positive news. The Los Angeles Dodgers have now, as of this recording, won 10 games in a row and are very comfortably in first place. In fact, if I pull up the standings for you Right now, they are 73-46. Only the Atlanta Braves have a better record in the National League, and they actually, no, yeah, only the Braves in the National League, because the Orioles technically are one game better than them. But they're up by 10 games over the San Francisco Giants, who look to be pretty much a threat, but ultimately the reality was neither the Giants nor the Diamondbacks, who've really fallen down and are now barely over 500, neither of them have really the star power to keep up with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, you look at their team right now, obviously the pitching rotation leaves a little bit to be desired for, but, you know, they've gotten production out of guys like Mookie Betts, Chris Taylor, and
Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman too. He's been up there in the league leaders for a batting title. Which, by the way, I think I could probably have this debate later on in the season, but I think the question needs to be asked: who ended up being winners of the first base arms race between the Braves and the Dodgers with Matt Olson and Freddie Freeman? You don't have to answer that right away. We can.
No, but I want to think about that. It's a good debate because doesn't Matt Olson have like 43 home runs if I'm not mistaken, or more?
Yes, because he hit 2 bombs in the 21-3 game where they destroyed the Mets.
I mean, he's having a hell of a season. I mean,
yeah,
that guy's going to be a future star in the making.
And it's yet another star that the Oakland A's traded for a precious bag of magic beans.
I mean, what did you expect? The Oakland A's are going to be Moneyball fiends forever. So,
no, this is the Oakland A's. You know that scene in SpongeBob where Squidward's lying down in a cardboard box? Spare change.
Spare change, ma'am. Spare change. Oi.
Speaking of spare change, Ahmed Rosario I thought was a good get for the Dodgers. Their infield depth was, really hurting them. And how the hell did you pull off a deal getting him for Noah Syndergaard? And we're not talking about Noah Syndergaard, who could throw like 90-something miles per hour when he was in his prime with the Mets. We're talking about damaged goods Noah Syndergaard, who is now on his, I want to say, 5th team in the last 3 years.
Something like that. I would say this is the I'm a shell of myself Noah Syndergaard is the way I would really put it. And he's getting hit all over the yard. He can't even pitch anymore.
Yeah, when you're struggling with the Dodgers and now Cleveland, it's probably time to hang it up there.
Didn't he say something bad about the Dodgers on the way out also, if I'm not mistaken?
I could be wrong, but I think you're right about that. But it's
because Noah Syndergaard's mouth has gotten him in trouble too, many times, including with the Mets.
Yeah, no, that guy clearly has nothing. So you can look at the Dodgers streak and dismiss it because they did sweep the A's. Actually, no, it started against the Padres. They swept, but before that, they swept the A's. They took that out of 3 from San Diego. Or, I'm sorry, 3 out of 4. They had a 2-game sweep against the Diamondbacks, swept the Rockies in 4 games. But now you're playing a team that's above 500, and people say, oh, it's the Milwaukee Brewers are above 500. Now, granted, that division's shit because, the NL Central has been kind of weird, but you still pretty much won at least 2 out of 3. The 3rd game is going to be starting after this recording, and for all we know, it could be at 11 by the time this episode ends up dropping.
Can I point out one thing, though? Can I just point out one thing, though?
Go ahead.
Because, you've said to me in the past, when, even though, again, this might be apples to oranges, but, when Domingo Germán pitched the perfect game against, what was it, the A's? And, people were criticizing it or whatever because, it's the Oakland A's. I remember you said, it doesn't matter. A perfect game is a perfect game, no matter.
Well,
a 10-game winning streak is a 10-game winning streak, no matter how you slice it.
Well, Nick, I was kind of semi-joking because I was pointing out how bad he'd been, but nevertheless, you're right.
So, because you said that 3 of the games were against the A's and the Dodgers win streak. So
no. I forgot that they had a loss against San Diego in between, but still, the last series they lost was against the Reds. That was in late July.
Oh my God! I mean,
since that series against the Reds, the Dodgers have only lost 1 game in the month of August.
You know what's crazy about the Dodgers? They're pretty much hiding their flawed pitching behind the massive offense that they have. That's the offense is carrying them.
Yeah, no, Nick, I was just about to get to that because their pitching compared to years past hasn't been that great. I mean, you still have Clayton Kershaw, but we've long been past the point where he's the prime Clayton Kershaw. So
I think he's going to retire in the next couple of years. That's just me, but I don't know. He's been hurt a lot of elbow, arm injuries, shoulder injuries with Kershaw, which when you're getting those injuries, that means your career is getting close to over.
Yeah. But with that being said, I probably would put him in my, if we're focusing on just LA, I'd probably still put him in my Dodgers Mount Rushmore. Not counting Brooklyn.
I mean, he is one of the all-time guys. I mean, he finally won them a championship for the first time in, what was it, 2020? So during the COVID year. I mean, even though I don't count that one, to be honest.
I don't. I'm kind of iffy on that championship.
I mean, it's in the record book, right? I mean, but
it is. But going back to the Dodgers, I don't think that this is necessarily a team that could beat the Braves in a 7-game series. But here's why this 10-game winning streak is huge for them. Because, as I said, you're now 10 games up in first place, 11 in the all-important loss column. And, coming up, you've got other teams you've got the Cleveland Guardians, under 500, Miami Marlins before that, who are solid, but then the Diamondbacks, who, as I said, they've pretty much been treading water at this point because they've been sliding big time. And then the only really tough series they have coming up is the Atlanta Braves. And, I think that they can really take things easy come September because, going in, you can rest certain guys, kind of pace themselves just to get in the playoffs. Because I don't think they're going to fall into that the third best record, where essentially that means you end up having to play in the wild card round. But with that being said, there's still going to be a lot of question marks with the Los Angeles Dodgers come playoff time because, despite their really good lineup, this is still a team that has a track record for choking. I understand they won it in 2020, but since then, there have been much better Dodger teams that just could not finish the job. And it begs the question, how are we going to look at the Dodgers once their core breaks up? I honestly have always felt like this is a team that's won more in spite of Dave Roberts than because of him. Because I know the guys love playing for Dave Roberts, but he's such a micromanager, so to speak.
He's a very old-fashioned manager, I think is the terminology you're looking for, from the standpoint of, I do things this way. If you remember, one of the scrappiest guys, of course, we're going to have nightmares about Dave Roberts forever back in 2004. But the way I look at it is, I think they're going to struggle in the postseason because what happens in the postseason? The offensive numbers go down because the pitching, you're seeing aces every 2 to 3 days in the postseason. If you can't hit, their pitch is going to get destroyed. So if they don't hit, they're screwed.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much why they struggled against the San Diego Padres last year.
Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers are a good team.
Have the pitching to compete with the San Diego Padres. They also really had pitching problems even last year, if you remember.
That's right. Yeah.
Because once Walker Buehler had Tommy John surgery, that was when they really were in trouble. Because remember, they may have won 111 games, but also look at the competition.
Right. Like I said, if they could somehow get decent pitching in the playoffs and the offense can roll, they might win. They might have a chance at winning. But if the pitching doesn't roll a little bit, they're going to get rolled over.
There are also a number of wild card teams that I wouldn't be shocked could sneak up on the Dodgers. I mean, look at the wild card, honestly. See how many teams, could probably, sneak up on them? You've got the Milwaukee Brewers, who are kind of a mystery box. I don't think they would stand a chance. But then, as far as the other teams there, you got the Phillies, who, what they did last year. I mean, people tend to forget, but the Phillies actually have the best record since June.
Which is kind of scary.
Don't be shocked if they somehow pulled off another run of their own. The Giants have good pitching. I understand they are behind them, but what did we say gets you through the playoffs? It's pitching.
It's always pitching, postseason pitching, always.
So, and I think the Marlins are another team that, even with the struggles of Alcantara, that's another team that has a pitching staff that, in a short series, anything can happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at the Marlins. I mean, the way that we just got swept by them.
No, we lost
2 out of 3. Or lost 2 out of 3. Felt like a sweep the way that 9th inning went in that game. But
tell me about it.
But you know what? The Dodgers, it's all about potential with them. Everyone says, "Oh, they're great. They have a World Series opportunity." Okay, that's great. That's on paper. I hate when people say that. Oh, on paper they could win.
I'm at the point where I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it. They're like a West Coast. They're like a West Coast Dallas Cowboys in that sense.
Oh, that's a good comparison, because everyone thinks the Cowboys are going to be this America's team. Then they go nowhere.
No, the Dodgers have had that feel for a while. Like, you've seen how a lot of people, if you look at biographies, will tell you that they've seen the Dodgers like on national TV, like even in the 70s and the 80s, like you had Tommy Lasorda appearing on Johnny Carson and whatnot. Yep. And you had him bleeding Dodger blue and all this Dodger Town stuff. Like, even before they got like crazy with their payroll, the Dodgers have always been that like team that gets talked about a lot, Right.
So again, do the Dodgers have a chance? Absolutely, but we need to wait and see.
No, I'm just like, okay, great. You won 10 games in a row in the regular season. What do you want me to give you a trophy already?
The regular season is not the provable games. The postseason is where you have to prove that you win the games.
Yeah, you're not going to find Oakland A's or disappointing San Diego Padres in the playoffs, or the Colorado Rockies for that matter.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Now, moving on from the Dodgers, let's talk about a few milestones that have happened. So, Miguel Cabrera this past week hit his 509th home run. And he also entered the top 20 of the all-time hit list. Nick, would you be shocked if I told you that unless you saw it on this banner, would you be shocked if I told you that he had more hits than Tony Gwynn at this point?
No, because even though like early in his career, Miguel Cabrera was a power guy, Miguel Cabrera, for a guy who was a power guy, knew how to use all fields when he was with the Marlins, even as young as the Marlins, and even in Detroit, which you have to realize when you're in Comerica Field, you can't be swinging for the fences all the time because the park is so big. You got to take the hits when you can get them. And he was so good at hitting to right center in Comerica Park.
He also had that natural strength where, like, if he hit a ball, like, it could just go over the fence.
Well, that too. Like, he was like the king of hitting opposite field home runs too at one point. That like he's an outstanding hitter. He will be first ballot.
Oh, for sure. Now, obviously, we're not talking about Miguel Cabrera in his prime anymore, but it's still pretty cool to see him keep climbing up the milestone ladder, like, while we still have a chance to watch him play, even though, unfortunately, this is pretty much him being a shell of himself at this point.
Is this his last year? I thought he announced...
Yes, he is. He's pretty much been doing a retirement tour. The Red Sox gave him a number 24 from inside the Green Monster.
Okay, yeah, because I thought I remembered him saying, like, hey, I think he finally realized, like, hey, I gotta hang it up. I hit the milestones. I got my 500 home runs. I don't know how many hits he has. Do we know how many hits he has all time?
He has 3,147.
Oh, so then he hit both milestones. He's got the 500. He's got the 3,000. There's really no more. The Tigers are not going anywhere. Sorry, but it's just the facts. He's pretty much collecting a large paycheck. That's really what he was doing at this point. He can retire. He will be a first ballot, and I think he's had a really good career. Really good career.
Yeah, for sure. And you want to hear a fun fact?
Okay.
He is the last player left that played against the Expos.
Holy cow. Now I feel old.
Well, speaking of history, let me go back to the Dodgers for a little bit and talk about Fernando Valenzuela. So the Dodgers this past weekend had a weekend where they honored Fernando Valenzuela, and they finally retired his number, which, if you really think about it, was kind of pointless, sort of, because you know how many Dodgers have worn 34 since Fernando retired?
No, I don't. None,
Zero.
right?
Zero. No, they never were going to reissue number 34 because of his popularity. And, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Yankees with Paul O'Neill, because remember when he retired, he was such a popular figure that they did not want to issue 21 again. And when LaTroy Hawkins took it that one time, he got a lot of backlash over it, even though
I remember that. Because people were it's Paul O'Neill's number. Yeah.
He was trying to honor Roberto Clemente, but they treated 21 like it was a sacred number. But with Fernando, you can pretty much understand why they treated number 34 like it was a sacred number in Los Angeles. Because to really put things in perspective, Fernando Valenzuela really changed the culture of Dodger games in Los Angeles. Up until that point, they didn't this was a team that obviously saw Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in 1947. This was a team that had one of the all-time greatest Jewish baseball players in Sandy Koufax. This was a team that, while unfortunately they didn't treat him so well, they had Glenn Burke on their team, and he ended up being the first. After he retired, we found out he was the first player that was openly gay to have ever played in Major League Baseball.
Well, but by the way, speaking of nationality as well, think of Venezuela's nickname, El Toro.
No, Valenzuela. El Toro. You said Venezuela.
Oh, sorry, Valenzuela.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. El Toro. Yeah, that's culture right there. That's literally culture and nationality right there.
He was the first Latino. He was one of the first Latino superstars that the Dodgers had. And keep in mind, Nick, did you know that Chavez Ravine was where the Dodger Stadium is? Previously, was a place that had a lot of houses where people of our Latino people live, and they were essentially kicked off that land. And because of that, there was a whole divide at Dodger Stadium. You didn't really see as many Latino Americans or Mexican Americans going to games during that era because, the Dodgers were seen as a symbol of, supremacy.
Yeah. I mean, they dealt with an issue. Yeah. I mean,
when Fernando came, that changed. It brought about a lot of people of different cultures, and he pretty much sold out every start. Every start of his was like an event. Obviously, you and I weren't really around, but many were going to games. And to give you an idea of how good of a start he was, I wrote about this in a blog months ago. He started off 8-0 with a 0.50 ERA when he came up in 1981, when he was inserted in the starting rotation.
Dang.
And obviously he tailed off a little bit in the second half. Because remember, this was a strike short in 1981 season, but he wound up winning both the Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young. He pitches well in the postseason. He goes 8 2/3 in the Rick Monday game to clinch the pennant. The only game he appeared in the World Series is Game 3. Now, that game he didn't have his best stuff, but he still went the distance in helping the Dodgers beat the Yankees. And that was the game that turned around the series with the Dodgers coming back and leading them to their first world championship with Tommy Lasorda as their manager. And while he didn't really have a season like 1981, he still was a 6-time All-Star. He still had the second most strikeouts in the whole decade of the 1980s. Only Nolan Ryan had more. And you still had a lot of people going out to see his starts, even on the road.
Right. And also he had the unconditional windup, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, he would put his arms up. He would twist his body. He would be looking towards the heavens, and he would throw that deadly screwball.
That's what I'm talking about. He was one of the first with the unconditional windup, or kind of made it bigger.
And he also had that performance during, I think it was the 86 All-Star game. He struck out 5 consecutive batters, too.
I mean, the guy's a beast. Like, he should be in the actual Hall of Fame. Like,
I honestly think so too. I understand that he only won 173 games. I understand his numbers definitely tailed off after he started getting injured. And I understand that actually, I think that's a pitcher that you could really compare Jacob deGrom to in a sense.
right. But I think just culturally,
Yeah.
they should put him in the Hall of Fame.
I was going to say, if you really look at the impact he had with his culture, and if you really look at what he did in his prime, he was among the best pitchers in baseball. That's why I would advocate for him to go in the Hall of Fame. And not only that, the guy could rake too. He had
I remember that.
He had a batting average right around 200s. He actually won 2 Silver Sluggers, believe it or not.
That was back when the rules were natural before they changed them.
And there were even instances where Tommy Lasorda would have him pinch hit.
I mean, again, I don't know. I liked when the pitcher hit. That I guess call me old fashioned, but like culturally, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Culturally,
yeah. But in any event, it may have been 30 years after, and one of the other big significant parts of his and having his number retired is because, the Dodgers, if you look at their tradition, the only other number of a non-Hall of Famer that they have retired was Jim Gilliam, and that was because of tragic circumstances. He was a longtime player, and then he became a coach, and he ended up dying in the middle of one of their pennant runs, and as a result, they ended up retiring his number in tribute for his service and because, tragic circumstance. And remember, it's why Gil Hodges didn't get his number retired until last year, because last year was when he finally got inducted in the Hall of Fame. Only took 50 years after his death, but I've told you about that before.
I mean, I thought that was ridiculous too, but
it took Gil Hodges a long time for him to get his number retired, and yeah, that's pretty much their tradition. They don't retire numbers unless it's the Hall of Fame. But Fernando Valenzuela was different because of the impact he had, so I think it was a good move by LA on their part.
I have one hot take about the Hall of Fame, which, if you look at any other sport, now, call me crazy, but the NBA, as long as you have a halfway decent career and you've played for a long time, you get in the Hall of Fame. That would be a knock, but a lot of guys get in. Do you realize that Major League Baseball is the only one that has voters from the media, the writers, that decide, oh, I want you in, I don't want you in? You noticed that, right?
Yeah, and Nick, I know you and I pretty much differ on Barry Bonds. Like, you saw my mega blog about that. But one thing...
It's a good read, by the way.
One thing you and I can both agree on is that the Hall of Fame is sort of a glorified popularity contest.
By far it's a popularity contest. I mean, look what happened. A-Rod's never going to get in. Can we just admit that A-Rod is probably never going to get in? But David Ortiz got in.
Yeah, my point exactly.
All because David Ortiz is liked. That's a problem.
And the other thing that I've had a problem with was, if they care so much about character, then why haven't guys who are otherwise borderline players gotten that elevation in, But yet we're keeping out certain guys because of character.
First of all, if you're going to play the character card, then a lot of people shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame at all.
Thank you.
I mean, if we're going to play the character card, Babe Ruth shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Ty Cobb
shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, there's so many guys.
Gaylord Perry fucking admitted to cheating and even wrote a book called Me and the Spitter. Right. And yet somehow he's in the Hall of Fame, and yet Barry Bonds is not. I'm sorry, but
they're holding his moral.
How the hell am I supposed to take the Hall of Fame seriously?
You can't.
With all that in mind.
Actually, it would be a great video one day. I know we're talking about content while we're sitting here taping a show, but just talking about how flawed the MLB Hall of Fame is and just doing a whole video on it. And I could see you doing that one day, or like a vlog/video series on it, or a blog with a video.
Oh yeah, trust me. You'll probably see more of Should Be Hall of Famers once I write more blogs and I get more into my Mount Rushmore series. But yeah, no, I probably spent more time on Fernando Valenzuela than I wanted to because it led to tangents. But You know how I am with this discussion. This is something I really enjoy.
It was a good read too. I read the Bonds one and the Venezuela one. I mean, they're great reads. You make good cases for both, and I think I said to you before, Venezuela should be in. If it's not for the numbers, culturally, he changed the game in a lot of ways.
Yes.
So if you're not going to put him in, then you can't put a lot of people in.
Yeah, and make no mistake, are there players that I would put in before Valenzuela? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I definitely think he deserves more of a case than you know. And guess what? Tommy Lasorda also said he should be in the Hall of Fame. And now, granted, we know Tommy Lasorda may have burned him out. I mean, that's the reason he got injured. I mean, this is a guy who was throwing like 160 pitches, as many as 160 pitches per game. But it goes to show you how different the times were.
Well, I'll give you another one, which is more of a controversy today. Roger Clemens, with all the controversies that he's been through, I think he ended up winning the legal battle with Brian McNamee over the PED scandal.
And Barry Bonds technically won the legal battle too.
Right. And right now, I bet, this is just my perception, I think Roger Clemens would get in before Barry Bonds.
Yeah, I can see it. And by the way, speaking of Fernando Valenzuela, I think there's a new book about him that actually just came out. I bought it not too long ago. It's called Daybreak at Chavez Ravine. I can't wait to give that book a read when I have the chance. And I would love to somehow find a way to talk to Eric Sherman. You want to, like, I've read a lot of his pieces. If you want to talk about a guy that's like great with baseball history, like I follow him on Twitter. He makes a lot of speeches at Cooperstown and whatnot, promoting his books and whatnot. He is a great historian. Not to mention, this is also a guy who went on a road trip with Art Shamsky, Ron Swoboda, and Bud Harrelson, and went to see Tom Seaver while he was like still sick with Lyme disease.
Which is crazy, but he's got great stories. But all I can say is the Hall of Fame's got to change.
Yeah. Well, anyways, that's pretty much all we have to discuss on this episode. Nick, this was a lot of fun having you. I don't know how much we'll have you on, but every now and then I'm sure I'll probably bring you on in case of emergencies.
Well, we won't make the announcement here. You'll drop a small video about what's happening with the show in between episodes. You might have another co-host in the wing. So we'll let you drop that as a separate video. But if you want to finish out here, and then we'll.
But in any event, Nick, I think normally this is your job, but today I'm going to be stealing your thunder a little bit with the plugging. Folks, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram at HFTC ETB. You'll find a lot of good short videos on there. And as Nick mentioned, you may or may not be seeing one very soon in the near future. And of course, please don't forget to follow us on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network on Facebook, Twitter, X. Thank you, Elon Musk. Instagram and TikTok. And of course, don't forget to follow our YouTube channel as well. You can find us at youtube.com/ETB Network. And as always, hit that big red button down below. Ring the bell. Give us a like. Give us a comment. Let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you guys. Yada, yada, yada. And of course, last but not least, I may have mentioned a few blogs on this. So why don't we do another shameless self-promotion? And, maybe not self-promotion, but check out the ETB podcast website. Follow all our good blogs and other good stuff right there. And that'll pretty much wrap it up for episode number 7 of Hitting for the Cycle. On behalf of Nick Morgasen, I'm Hank Indictor, and I will see you guys next time.
See you next time, guys.